Picture yourself stepping into an Australian home from 1955. The weatherboards are clean, the veranda is tidy, and somehow the whole house just feels ready. You could invite someone over right now without stress. Fast forward to 2024. Our homes are bigger than ever. We have more stuff, more cupboards, more space. Yet somehow, our kitchens are buried. Our bedrooms are cluttered, and we spend entire weekends cleaning. Something changed between then and now. It wasn't our houses that got worse. It was the daily habits we forgot to pass down. Let's look at what made Australian homes from the 1950s actually work. Looking back at these habits from 1950s Australian homes, one pattern becomes clear. None of them were complicated. None required expensive organizers or renovations. They were just small, daily disciplines, repeated so consistently that they became invisible. These weren't special habits. They were normal life. Grandmothers didn't think they were doing anything special. They were just living the way everyone lived. The good news, we can rebuild these rhythms. Not all at once, not by buying new storage systems, just one small habit at a time. Pick one habit this week. Try it for 7 days, then add another. Your Australian home can feel calm and organized again, just like 1955. Section 1. The Australian 1950s Home Difference. When you walked into an Australian home in 1955, the first thing you noticed was the space. Most Australian homes back then were smaller than what we build today. The kitchen was maybe half the size of a modern kitchen. The bedrooms were simple. The lounge was practical, not fancy. But here's the interesting part. Those homes always looked neat and organized. Back then, Australian families didn't have dishwashers. They didn't have microwaves. They didn't have walk-in pantries or double fridges. What they had was discipline. They had systems. They had daily habits that kept everything in check. Australian homes in the 1950s were built for living, not for showing off. Mums and grandmothers understood something we've forgotten. A home with fewer things is easier to maintain. An empty counter is more valuable than a fancy kitchen full of gadgets. A simple system beats a complicated one every single time. The houses weren't fancy, but they were functional. They were calm. They were organized. And the most interesting part, nobody thought it was difficult. These habits were just normal life. Section 2. The power of the morning routine in Australian homes during the 1950s. The day started with one simple action. Before anyone left their bedroom, the bed was made. It took 60 seconds. Not 10 minutes. 60 seconds. This wasn't about being perfect. It was about setting a standard. When your bed is made, your room looks half tidy already. When your room looks tidy, you feel ready for the day. When you feel ready, everything else becomes easier. Scientists now study this. They found that making your bed in the morning actually lowers stress levels. It's not magic. It's just the way your brain works. One small win in the morning makes you feel like you can handle bigger challenges. Australian families in the 1950s didn't know the science. They just knew it worked. Mums would say, "Make your bed before breakfast." It was as normal as brushing your teeth. No questions asked. The interesting part is this. If the bed is made, you're less likely to throw clothes on it. If your room is tidy, you're less likely to leave mess on the floor. One habit creates another habit. Section 3. The kitchen reset system. The Australian kitchen in the 1950s had a completely different rhythm than today. After dinner, something happened that made the whole house feel settled. The kitchen wasn't left as a disaster zone. It was cleaned, organized, and reset before anyone did anything else. Here's how it worked. Everyone helped. One person cleared the table. One person washed the dishes. Someone dried them. Someone swept the floor. The whole family participated. Not because they wanted to, because it was expected. The entire process took about 20 minutes. By 7 o'clock, the kitchen looked exactly the way it did at 5 o'clock before dinner cooking started. Leftovers were packed away. Counters were wiped clean. The dish towel was hung to dry. Done, complete, finished. This system did two important things at the same time. First, it kept the kitchen permanently clean. Second, it taught children that looking after shared spaces was part of being in a family. There was no debate about it. You ate the meal, you helped clean it up. That was the deal. Modern families have dishwashers and modern appliances, but many homes still have mountains of dishes in the sink at 10 p.m. Why? Because we lost the habit. We stopped doing the 20-minute reset. We started thinking, "I'll do it later," and later never came. Australian families knew that clean as you go works better than ignoring it all day. Section 4. The weekly menu system in Australian homes during the 1950s. Something magical happened on Saturday morning. Mum would sit at the kitchen table with a pen and paper. She wrote down the week's menu. Monday, meat pie Tuesday, roast chicken Wednesday, soup Thursday, mince and vegetables, Friday fish, Saturday, leftovers, Sunday, roast beef. This wasn't just for fun. This was strategy. When you know exactly what you're cooking every single day, your shopping list writes itself. When you only buy what you need, your pantry stays organized. When your pantry is organized, you don't waste money on food. Modern families stand in front of the fridge at 5:30 p.m. and think, what should we cook? That moment is dangerous. That's when takeaway menus start looking attractive. That's when you end up buying random ingredients you don't need. A rotating menu removes that problem completely. You walk into the kitchen knowing exactly what to do. The ingredients are already home because you planned ahead. You're not stressed. You're not wasting time. You're not wasting money. Australian mums understood this wasn't about being boring. It was about being smart. Knowing what you're doing removes half the mental load of cooking. And when your mind is less stressed, everything else in the house becomes easier too. Section 5. The 4-drawer rule. Walk into an Australian kitchen today and open the utensil drawer. You'll probably find 30 different things. Spatulas in 3 sizes. Whisks in different shapes. Peelers, tongs, special tools you used once in 2019. Everything is tangled. Everything is messy. In 1950s Australian homes, the kitchen had maybe 4 drawers total. Seriously, 4. That was it. And somehow, grandmothers cooked complete meals every single day with the contents of those 4 drawers. Because they had the right tools, not the most tools. One good chef's knife does the job of 5 specialist tools. One cast iron pan can fry, bake, simmer, and braise. When each tool does multiple jobs, you need fewer tools. This wasn't about being poor, it was about being smart. Fewer tools meant less to wash, less to store, less to search through when you needed something quickly. The kitchen stayed lean because the equipment stayed lean. Here's something else that happened. When you only have 4 tools, you take care of them properly. You sharpen the knives. You clean the pans carefully. You respect what you own because you know you can't just replace it. Modern kitchens have drawer organizers for utensils we barely use. 1950s kitchens had a few good tools that lasted 30 years. Section 6. The one-in, one-out system. Australian homes in the 1950s had a secret rule that nobody really talked about. It was just understood. When something new came into the house, something old had to leave. A new pot meant the old pot was donated. New dish towels meant the worn ones became cleaning rags. New clothes meant old ones were given away. There was no accumulation because there wasn't room for it. Modern Australia is completely different. Storage companies are now worth billions of dollars. People are renting storage units for things they don't use. We're buying bigger houses just to store more stuff. In the 1950s, space was valuable. Families understood this instinctively. You couldn't keep everything, so you made smart choices about what deserved space in your home. This habit did something really important. It made every purchase intentional. Before you bought something, you thought about where it would go. You thought about what you'd have to get rid of. You thought about whether you really needed it. Compare that to today. We buy things without thinking. We keep things just in case. We fill every corner with stuff. Then we wonder why our homes feel chaotic. Section 7. The veranda principle. Australian homes in the 1950s almost always had a veranda. It was the first line of defense against clutter entering the main house. When someone came home, the shoes came off on the veranda, the bags were put down, the mail was sorted immediately. Keys went into a dish. Coats were hung. Nothing entered the main house until it had a proper place to go. This system was genius because it stopped mess before it could spread. Mail never made it to the kitchen table. Shoes never ended up in the hallway. Bags never sat in the lounge. Modern Australian homes still have entryways, but we've forgotten the system. Mail piles up everywhere. Shoes end up in random spots. School bags are dropped by the door. Within an hour, the chaos spreads to every room. The veranda principle is simple but powerful. Have a system at the entry point. Stop clutter before it enters. Make people process their things before they move deeper into the house. It takes maybe 30 seconds, but those 30 seconds prevent hours of mess later. Section 8. The Seasonal Reset Spring. Cleaning meant something real in Australian homes during the 1950s. It wasn't just a saying, it was an actual event that happened twice a year, once in spring and once before Christmas. Every shelf was emptied, every drawer was pulled out, every surface was scrubbed. Then, one item at a time, things were put back. But only the things that had earned their place. The chipped mug that nobody used. Donation box, the bent whisk, thrown away. Plastic containers with missing lids. Sorted and orphaned ones discarded. Old magazines, gone. This wasn't quick. This was a full reset. And it happened because Australian families understood something important. Without this reset, clutter slowly creeps in. A little bit here, a little bit there. Before you know it, your home is full. The seasonal purge was a fail-safe system. Even if small messes had piled up over 6 months, the spring clean caught them. The house went back to baseline, lean and functional. Modern Australians often skip spring cleaning. We think we're too busy. We think we don't have time. But we're spending our weekends stressed about mess because we never do the big reset. The 1950s system worked because it addressed the problem twice a year. It kept everything from getting out of control.